I didn't sleep, not even for a minute. It started the first night I moved into the dorm. At first, I thought it was just nerves, new place, new roommate, new sounds you're not used to. But then I realized it wasn't the building, it was the silence. Chris noticed it too. We didn't know each other before that day, just two strangers assigned to the same room. Cheap university housing, double occupancy, third-floor corner unit. He was already there when I arrived, sitting on the bed closest to the window, unpacking slowly like he didn't want to make too much noise. We exchanged a simple nod. That was it. No long introductions, no friendly jokes. Something about the room made conversation feel unnecessary or unsafe. That first night, we tried to sleep like normal people. We turned off the lights. 10 minutes later, Chris turned his back to me and whispered, "You awake?" "Yeah," I said. Silence again. The room was too quiet, not normal quiet. It felt like the kind of silence that listens back. So we did what most people would call ridiculous. We turned the TV on, low volume, just noise, anything to fill the air. Because when the room got silent, something else started to happen. Click. It came from the wall, not loud, not obvious, just close enough that you noticed it wasn't imagination. Chris sat up immediately. "What was that?" he whispered. "I don't know." We both stared at the same wall. Nothing moved, no shadows, no cracks, no signs. But the silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt occupied. We ignored it. At least we tried to. But 20 minutes later, click, again. Same place, same sound, like something tapping from the other side. Chris threw his blanket off. "You're not crazy, right?" he said. I didn't answer immediately, because I didn't want to admit I heard it too. But I nodded. That was the first night we learned something important. The room didn't like silence, and when it got quiet enough, something responded. The next day, we tried to act normal. Classes, food, people, anything to forget the sound. But Chris brought it up again while we were walking back. "You think it's pipes?" he asked. "No pipes make that sound." "Then what?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know, and I didn't want to guess. That night, we kept the TV on louder. We even played music from Chris's phone at the same time. Overkill, maybe, but we didn't care, because we had learned something else too. The clicks only happened when it got quiet. Except that night, it didn't stop. Even with noise, even with voices. Click. Chris froze. "It's getting worse," he whispered. I didn't disagree, because this time it wasn't just a single sound. It was slower, deliberate, like something trying to communicate. I got up and walked to the wall. Chris followed immediately. "Don't," he said, but I already placed my hand against it. Cold, normal, too normal. I knocked once, just to prove it was nothing. Click. From inside, right after mine. We both stepped back instantly. No explanation, no joke, just instinct. That's when we noticed it. A thin seam in the wall, almost invisible, like a panel that had been painted over too many times. Chris pointed at it. "That was always there?" I shook my head. "No, we shouldn't have touched it. I know that now, but I did." I pressed my fingers against the edge and pulled slightly. It shifted, just a little. Chris grabbed my wrist. "Are you insane?" "I just want to see what it is. It's a wall. It's not acting like one." I pulled again, harder, and the panel gave way. A thin opening, darkness behind it. Not construction space, not pipes, something deeper, something that felt used, like it had been opened before, a lot. Chris stepped closer. "Don't shine your phone light in there," he said. I didn't listen. I did anyway. The light hit something inside, and for a second, I thought I saw movement. Not fast, not sudden, just awareness, like something noticed us noticing it. Then I heard it, very softly, right from inside the wall. A voice, not clear, not fully formed, but close enough to understand one word.
Open. Chris stepped back immediately. Nope, no, close it right now. But I couldn't move because the word didn't feel like a command. It felt like recognition, like it had been waiting for this moment. I closed the panel, quickly, too quickly, like I was afraid of what might happen if I hesitated. And for a moment, everything went quiet again. Too quiet. Chris looked at me. "You didn't hear that, right?" he asked. I didn't answer, because I did. And that was the first night everything changed. Not because we found something, but because it found us back.
I didn't go back to the room right away after orientation. Not because I was busy, because I didn't want to. There's a difference. That image of Dale sitting in the dirt, rubbing the bark of a tree like it meant something to him, it stuck in my head longer than it should have. It wasn't just weird, it felt intentional. Like he wasn't just touching the tree, he was interacting with it, listening, waiting. "Yo, you good?" Evan's voice snapped me back. We were sitting on a bench near the student center. I must have zoned it out. "Yeah," I said quickly. "Just tired." Marcus smirked. "First night in the dorms would do that." And I forced a laugh. If only they knew. I ended up hanging out with them most of the day. Anything to delay going back. But eventually there's nowhere left to hide. By late afternoon, I was standing outside my dorm room door, staring at it, listening. Silence. I slowly pushed the door open. The room was empty. Dale wasn't there. For a moment, I just stood there, scanning everything. Beds, desk, floor. Everything looked normal. Too normal. I stepped inside, closed the door behind me, locked it. That's when I noticed it. My suitcase. It was under my bed, but I hadn't put it there. I was sure of it. I left it beside my desk before orientation. Now it was pushed all the way in, perfectly centered. Too perfectly. A cold feeling crept up my spine. I knelt down slowly and pulled it out. The zipper was slightly open. Just a little. I froze. I knew I had zipped it shut. I always did. I opened it carefully. Close. Folded. But not the way I folded them. Someone had gone through my things. Again. Okay, no, I muttered under my breath. I stood up quickly, heart racing. That was it. I was done. I grabbed my phone and immediately sent a housing request. Room change. Urgent. I didn't even try to be subtle about it. About an hour later, I got the response. Approved. I exhaled for what felt like the first time all day. A new room, same building, different roommate. I could move in the next morning. Relief washed over me, but it didn't last long, because the door opened. I turned. Dale walked in, and the moment he saw me, he smiled. It was the first time I'd seen him smile, and I immediately wished I hadn't. It wasn't normal. It was too wide, too slow, like he was practicing it. "You moved my things," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He tilted his head slightly. "No." The answer came too fast, too flat. "My laptop, my bag." "No." Silence. I stared at him. He stared back, unblinking. "You went through my stuff," I said. Not a question this time. He didn't respond, just kept smiling. And then, very quietly, he said, "You shouldn't leave things open." A chill ran through my entire body. "What does that mean?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just walked past me, sat down at his desk, opened his laptop, like the conversation never happened. I didn't sleep in that room that night. I grabbed a blanket, my backpack, and told Evan I was crashing in his room. I didn't explain everything, just enough. Roommate's weird, need a break. He didn't question it. That night, lying on the floor of Evan's dorm, I finally felt safe, or at least safer, until my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it for a second, then opened it. "You left." My blood ran cold. Another message came in immediately after that. "Why?" I sat up, heart pounding. "How the hell?" I whispered. Evan looked over from his bed. "You good?" "Yeah," I said quickly. "Spam message." But I knew it wasn't. I typed back before I could stop myself. "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. "You know."
I didn't respond after that. I couldn't. I blocked the number, turned off my phone, and somehow, eventually, I fell asleep. The next morning, I moved into my new room. New roommate. Chris. Normal. That's the first word that came to mind. He shook my hand like a normal person, introduced himself without being asked. He even joked about how awkward dorm living could be. It felt like a reset, a second chance. By the time night came, I almost convinced myself the whole thing with Dale was just bad luck, a weird coincidence. Maybe he was just socially broken. Maybe I overreacted. That illusion didn't last long. It was around 2:30 in the morning when I woke up. At first, I didn't know why. Everything was quiet. Chris was asleep. The room was still. Then I heard it. Click. I stayed frozen. A few seconds passed. Click. It was faint, metallic. Coming from the door, my eyes locked onto the doorknob. It moved, just slightly, like someone was testing it. My chest tightened. Click. The sound wasn't random. It was controlled, deliberate. Someone was trying to open the door, very slowly, very carefully. I slid out of bed as quietly as I could. Every step felt too loud, too exposed. Chris stirred slightly behind me, but didn't wake. I reached the door and leaned toward the pier hole. What I saw made my stomach drop. A person, standing right outside. I couldn't see their face, only the top of their head, because they were looking down, at the lock. And then I heard it again. Click. My breath caught in my throat. They weren't just trying the handle. They were trying to unlock it from the outside. My hands started shaking. I backed away slowly, grabbed my phone, and dialed 911. I kept my voice low. "There's someone trying to break into my dorm room," I whispered. The operator responded calmly, told me to stay quiet. Help was on the way. Those 5 minutes felt like forever. The clicking continued, slow, patient, like whoever was out there knew I was inside, knew I was awake, and didn't care. Then, suddenly, silence. Complete silence. No footsteps, no movement, nothing. And somehow, that felt even worse. A few minutes later, I heard voices, loud, authoritative. "Campus police, step away from the door." Relief flooded through me. I rushed forward and opened the door, and there he was, Dale, on his knees, hands behind his back, being cuffed. His head slowly lifted, and our eyes met, and then he smiled, that same unnatural smile. "You moved," he said softly. I felt my blood run cold. "I found you anyway."
The hallway was filled with flashing red and blue lights. Campus police. A small crowd had already formed at the far end, students peeking out from their rooms, whispering, watching. I stood frozen in my doorway, barefoot, heart still racing. Dale was on his knees, cuffed, head tilted slightly upward, looking straight at me. "You moved," he said again. Soft, calm, like we were having a normal conversation. One of the officers pushed his shoulder down, eyes forward, but Dale didn't resist. He just kept smiling, that same slow, unnatural smile. "I found you anyway." Something about the way he said it. It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a fact. "Sir, are you the one who called?" one of the officers asked me. I nodded quickly. Yeah, that's him. He used to be my roommate." The officer glanced at Dale, then back at me. "You know him?" "Yeah. I moved rooms yesterday because he was going through my stuff, acting weird." Another officer stepped in, holding something. "Found this on him." My stomach dropped. It was a small pouch, dark fabric, zipped. "Recognize it?" the officer asked. I didn't answer right away, because I already knew. "Open it," the officer said. The other officer unzipped the pouch slowly. Inside, my things. A charger, a flash drive, a pair of earbuds, and my toothbrush, the same one he claimed I accidentally took. A wave of nausea hit me. "He's been stealing from me," I said quietly. "Looks like more than that," the officer muttered. They pulled Dale to his feet. He didn't struggle, didn't argue, didn't even look at them. He was still looking at me. "You leave things open," he said. My chest tightened. "Enough," one officer snapped, guiding him down the hall. As they walked him away, Dale twisted slightly, just enough to keep me in his line of sight. And then he said something that didn't make sense. "You didn't close it last night." I frowned. "What?" But he was already being pulled around the corner, gone. And just like that, the hallway felt empty again. But the feeling didn't go away, because those words stuck with me. "You didn't close it last night." The rest of the night was a blur. Statements, questions, campus security taking notes, Chris waking up halfway through everything, confused out of his mind. "You know that guy?" he asked me later. "Yeah," I said. "Unfortunately." "You're telling me he just showed up here?" "Yeah." Chris shook his head slowly. "That's messed up." I nodded, but I didn't say what I was really thinking, because something wasn't adding up. The next morning, I went to the campus security office. I needed answers. A different officer sat me down, older, more serious, the kind of guy who didn't waste words. "Your former roommate," he said, flipping through a file, "Dale Mercer." Hearing his full name felt strange, too formal, too normal. "He's being held for attempted unlawful entry, possession of stolen property, among other things." "Among other things?" I asked. The officer paused, then looked at me, carefully. "You said he was acting strange before you moved out." I nodded. "Yeah, he watched me, go through my stuff, acting weird." The officer leaned back slightly. "You're not the first person to report that." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, like he was deciding how much to say. "He was reassigned to your room last minute. Original roommate backed out." "Why?" No answer, at least not right away. Then, "Because of complaints." A cold silence filled the room. "From who?" I asked. The officer flipped another page. "From previous institution." My heart skipped. "He transferred?" The officer nodded. And another pause. "Student reported that Dale entered his room at night." I felt my hands go cold. "More than once?" I swallowed hard. "What happened?" The officer closed the file. He withdrew the complaint. "Why?" This time, the officer didn't answer. Instead, he said something else. "Did Dale ever say anything specific to you?" I hesitated, then nodded slowly. "He said, 'I leave things open.'" The officer's expression shifted, just slightly, but enough for me to notice. "And last night," I added, "he said I didn't close something." Silence. Then the officer leaned forward. "Did you leave something open?" My mind blanked. "What? Leave something open?" I shook my head. "I don't think so." But even as I said it, something didn't feel right. That night, back in my dorm, I couldn't shake the feeling. Chris was out, studying somewhere. I was alone. Again. I checked the door, locked, checked the windows, closed. Everything. Fine. Right? I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, tried to distract myself. But my thoughts kept drifting. "You didn't close it." "What does that even mean?" I muttered. My eyes wandered around the room. Door closed, closet closed, window Closed. Everything. Closed. Then I noticed something. My backpack, sitting by the foot of my bed, unzipped, just slightly. My breath caught. I slowly stood up, walked toward it. My heart was pounding now because I knew I zipped it. I always did. With shaking hands, I reached down and pulled it open. Inside, everything looked normal until I saw it. At the very bottom, something I didn't recognize. A small, folded piece of paper. My hands trembled as I picked it up, unfolded it. There was only one line written on it, in messy, uneven handwriting. You keep forgetting. I dropped the paper, and that's when I heard it. From inside the room, a sound. Soft, almost amused. A quiet click.
It didn't come from the door. It didn't come from the window. It came from inside the room. I froze. Every muscle in my body locked in place. For a moment, I convinced myself I imagined it. I had to. There was no one else in here. Chris wasn't back yet. The door was locked. The windows were shut. So where did it come from? My eyes slowly scanned the room. Desk. Empty. Bed. Unmade. Closet. Closed. I stared at it. Something about it felt wrong. Not open, not moving, just wrong. Click. This time, louder, clearer, and unmistakably from the closet. My throat went dry. No, I whispered under my breath. I took a step back, then another. My instincts were screaming at me to run, to get out, to open the door and not look back. But something else held me there, a horrible curiosity. Because if I ran now, I'd never know what was inside. And somehow, that felt worse. I swallowed hard, forced myself forward, one step at a time. The closer I got, the colder the air felt. That didn't make sense, but I felt it, like walking into a shadow. I reached for the closet handle. My hand hovered there for a second, shaking. Then, I pulled it open. The door creaked, slow, loud. Inside, nothing, just clothes, hanging normally. Still, I exhaled sharply, almost laughed. Get a grip, I muttered. I leaned in slightly, pushed some clothes aside. Nothing. No one. No movement. Just darkness. Relief washed over me, until I heard it again. Right behind me. Click. I spun around. The room was empty, but now my heart was racing uncontrollably. Nope, I said out loud. I'm done. I grabbed my phone and headed straight for the door, unlocked it, opened it, and froze. Someone was standing at the end of the hallway. Far enough that I couldn't see their face clearly, but close enough to know they were looking at me. Completely still, I squinted, trying to make out details. Tall, thin, familiar. Dale? I whispered. The figure didn't respond, didn't move. And then, the hallway lights flickered, just once. But in that split second of darkness, the figure was gone. My stomach dropped. I stepped out into the hallway, looked left, right. Empty. Completely empty. No, 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 I muttered. I walked a few steps forward, heart pounding. Checked the corner. Nothing. No doors closing, no footsteps, no sound at all. It was like he had never been there. I stood there for a few seconds longer, then slowly backed into my room, locked the door again. This time, I didn't feel safe inside,
and I didn't feel safe outside. I was trapped between both. Chris came back about 20 minutes later. I must have looked terrible because the first thing he said was, "Dude, what happened to you?" I didn't answer right away. I didn't even know where to start. "I think someone's messing with me," I finally said. He frowned. "What do you mean?" I hesitated, then told him. Not everything, but enough. The noises, the closet, the hallway. He listened, didn't laugh, didn't interrupt. But when he finished, he shook his head. "You're stressed," he said. "After what happened last night. Makes sense." "No," I said immediately. "This is different." "How?" "Because I heard it inside," I wanted to say. Because something was in here. But I didn't. Because saying it out loud made it sound insane. Instead, I said, "I know what I heard." Chris sighed. "All right," he said. "Let's check everything." We went through the room together. Closet. Empty. Under the beds. Nothing. Bathroom down the hall. Clear. Windows. Locked from the inside. Everything checked out. Everything was normal. Too normal. "See?" Chris said. "Nothing." I nodded slowly, but I didn't feel better, because I hadn't imagined the note. I reached into my pocket, pulled it out, showed him. "You didn't write this?" I asked. He looked at it, shook his head. "No." "You're sure? Why would you mess with me like that?" I didn't answer, because he was right. He wouldn't. So that left only one possibility. Dale. But that didn't make sense either. He was arrested, taken away. There was no way he could have gotten in here. No way he could have left that note. No way he could have been standing in the hallway. Unless my thoughts stopped, because something clicked. Not a sound, a realization. I turned slowly towards the closet again. "Chris?" I said quietly. "Yeah?" When we checked the closet, he looked at me. "You opened it first, right?" "Yeah." "And you didn't hear anything?" "No." I felt my chest tighten. "Because I did," I whispered. Chris stared at me. "What are you saying?" I didn't answer. I walked slowly towards the closet again. Every step felt heavier than the last. I reached out, grabbed the handle, pulled it open. Same as before. Clothes. Still. Nothing there. But this time, I did something different. I stepped inside, pushed the clothes aside, and looked deeper, into the back wall. My breath caught. Because there was something there. Something I hadn't seen before. A thin line. Running vertically. Barely visible. Like a seam. My hand started shaking again. "Chris?" I said. "What?" "There's something behind this." He stepped closer. "What do you mean?" I pressed my fingers against the wall and pushed. At first, nothing happened. Then, a soft shift. A hidden panel moved, just slightly, and from the darkness behind it came a smell, old, rotten, and something else, something worse. Chris stepped back immediately. "Dude, what is that?" I didn't answer, because I was too busy staring into the gap, into the darkness behind the wall. And then, something moved. Not fast, not sudden, slow, like something pulling itself back, deeper into the hidden space. My entire body went cold, because in that moment, I realized something horrifying. Dale didn't need to break in. He didn't need to follow me. He didn't need to find me, because he already knew something I didn't. Something about this room, something hidden, something that had been here long before I moved in, and maybe long before Dale ever did.
The smell hit us first. It wasn't just bad. It was wrong. Rotten. damp, like something that had been sealed away for a long time and wasn't meant to be found. Chris covered his nose immediately. "Dude, close it." But I couldn't, because something inside that space had just moved. Not imagined, not a trick of light. I saw it. A slow shift, like something pulling itself back into the darkness. "Did you see that?" I whispered. "See what?" Chris said, already stepping away. "There's something in there." "No," he said quickly. "No, there's not. That's just old wiring or something. Pipes. You're freaking yourself out." But his voice wasn't steady. He didn't believe that. Not really. Neither did I. I crouched down slowly, bringing my face closer to the opening. The darkness inside wasn't natural. It felt thick, like it swallowed the light instead of reflecting it. "Hello?" I said quietly. Chris grabbed my shoulder immediately. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer, because for a second I thought I heard something. A faint sound. Breathing. Slow. Uneven. Coming from inside the wall. My heart slammed against my chest. "Chris," I whispered. He didn't respond, because he heard it too. We both froze. The breathing stopped. And then, click, right in front of us, inside the wall. Chris stumbled backward. "Okay, nope, we're done. We're calling someone." I didn't move, because now I understood something. That clicking sound. It wasn't the door. It wasn't the lock. It was coming from inside the walls. We slammed the closet shut. Neither of us spoke for a few seconds. Then Chris grabbed his phone. "I'm calling campus security." "Wait," I said. He looked at me like I was insane. "Wait? For what?" "For them to not believe us?" I snapped. He hesitated, and I knew I was right. What were we going to say? "Hey, there's something breathing inside our wall?" They'd laugh, or worse, they'd think we were drunk or losing it. But something was in there, and we both knew it. Chris ran his hair through his hair. Okay, then what do we do?" I didn't answer right away, because my mind was racing. Dale, the note, the clicking, the message. "You keep forgetting." And then it hit me. "He knew," I said. "What?" "Dale knew about this." Chris frowned. "How?" "Think about it," I said. "The things he said, the way he acted, the way he'd stay up all night. Listening, watching. He wasn't just being weird. He was paying attention." "To what?" Chris asked. I looked toward the closet. To that. The room went quiet again. Too quiet. Chris sat down slowly on his bed. "So what are you saying? He was talking to something in the walls?" I didn't answer, because as crazy as it sounded, it felt right. Too right. Too right. That night, neither of us slept. We left the lights on, TV running, anything to fill the silence. But every now and then, we'd hear it. Click. Always faint. Always somewhere we couldn't pinpoint. Inside the walls. Watching. Waiting. Around 3 a.m., Chris finally passed out. I didn't. I couldn't. I sat on my bed, staring at the closet, waiting for something, anything. And then my phone buzzed. I flinched. Unknown number, again. My hands felt numb as I opened the message. You opened it. My breath caught. Another message came instantly. You weren't supposed to. My heart started racing again. I typed back before I could stop myself. What is in the wall? A long pause, longer than before. Then the reply came. It watches too. I felt something drop inside my chest. What does that mean? Typing. Stopped. Typing again.
Then the final message. You learned you. The screen went dark. No more messages. I stared at my reflection in the phone, and for a split second, I thought I saw something behind me. I turned quickly. Nothing. But the closet door was slightly open, just a crack. I knew for a fact we had shut it. My entire body went cold. "Chris," I whispered. No response. He was out. I stood up slowly. Every step, careful, silent. The closet door creaked as I pushed it open again, and this time, the hidden panel was already open, wider than before, the darkness behind it deeper. Breathing again, louder, closer, and then something shifted forward, not fully visible, but enough to see a shape, too thin, too long, and where a face should be, there was nothing, just darkness, but I could feel it looking at me, studying me, the same way Dale used to. And then it made a sound, not a growl, not a voice, a whisper, broken, distorted, like it was trying to copy something, trying to learn. Dan.
Dan. The sound didn't come out right. It dragged, broke in the middle, like something trying to force human speech through something that wasn't built for it. I couldn't move. I couldn't even breathe properly. The shape inside the wall shifted again. Closer. Still mostly hidden in the darkness, but not enough. I could see more now. Its arms, too long, too thin, bent at angles that didn't make sense. Its body, pressed awkwardly against the narrow space, like it didn't fit where it was hiding. And its head, or where a head should have been, was just a hollow outline, a hollow shape filled with darkness. But I felt its attention, focused, locked onto me. Dan. This time, clearer. My body finally reacted. I stumbled backward, hitting the edge of my bed. "Chris!" I shouted. No response. "Chris, wake up!" Still nothing. My heart dropped. He was right there, just a few feet away, but he wasn't moving. I glanced at him. Still asleep. Too still. "Chris!" I yelled again. Nothing. And then I realized something that made my blood run cold. The room was too quiet. No hum of electricity, no faint buzz from the lights, no sound from outside. Nothing. It was like the world had been muted, except for one thing, the breathing and the voice. Dan. I turned back slowly. The thing had moved again, closer to the opening, closer to me. Its arm slid forward slightly. Too long, too smooth. The fingers, if they were fingers, stretched, like they were trying to remember what hands looked like. My stomach twisted. "Stay back," I whispered. It didn't listen. Instead, it tilted. Not its head, its entire upper body, like it was trying to copy how humans move, watching, learning. And then it spoke again, but this time it wasn't my voice, it was my voice. "Stay back." Perfect. Not broken, not distorted. Perfect. My exact tone, my exact words. I felt something inside me crack. "No," I whispered. The thing paused, then repeated. "No." I stumbled further back, shaking. "It's copying me," I said under my breath.
Copying me. My own voice echoed back from inside the wall. Something wet hit the floor. I looked down. My hand was bleeding. I didn't even realize I had clenched my fist hard enough to break skin. I backed up until I hit the door. My fingers fumbled with the lock. Behind me, the thing moved faster. Not fully out, but enough. Its arms stretched further, longer than it should be. Reaching, not grabbing, just reaching. Like it was trying to understand distance. Dan. My voice again, but softer now, almost curious. I finally unlocked the door, yanked it open, and stumbled into the hallway. Sound came rushing back all at once. Lights buzzing, distant voices, footsteps somewhere far away. Normal. I turned back towards the room. The closet door was closed, completely still, like nothing had happened. Dude, what the hell? Chris's voice, behind me. I turned. He was standing in the doorway now, awake, confused. You just ran out of the room like a maniac. I stared at him. You didn't hear it? What? The voice, the thing. What thing? My chest tightened. You were just sleeping. You started yelling, then ran out. No, I said immediately. No, you were right there. I tried to wake you. Chris shook his head slowly. I've been asleep for like 2 hours. Silence. I looked past him, into the room. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Again. You didn't hear anything? I asked quietly. No. I swallowed, because that meant one thing. It only happens when I'm alone, or when it wants me to be. I didn't go back inside that night. I stayed in the hallway until morning. Chris eventually convinced me to come back in, but I didn't sleep. I couldn't, because now I knew. It wasn't just in the walls. It was learning, adapting, becoming. The next day, I went back to campus security. This time, I didn't hold anything back. I told them everything. The hidden panel, the breathing, the voice. The officer from before listened, quietly, carefully. When he finished, he didn't laugh, but he didn't look surprised either. That room, he said slowly, has had complaints. My stomach dropped. What kind of complaints? He hesitated. Then he said, students hearing things. I felt my throat tighten. Seeing things too? He didn't answer, but I didn't need him to, because his silence said everything. And Dale? I asked. The officer leaned forward slightly. He wasn't just breaking into your room. My heart skipped. He was trying to get back into that wall. A chill ran through my entire body. What do you mean? The officer held my gaze. Because before you moved in, Dale used to live in that room.
Dale used to live in that room. The officer's words didn't register at first. They just hung there. What? I said. He was assigned to that dorm last semester. Same room you're in now. My chest tightened. And the student before him? I asked. The officer didn't answer immediately. Which was answer enough. What happened to them? I pressed. He closed the file in front of him. They transferred. That's it? They just left? Another pause. They requested it urgently. I leaned back in my chair. Same as me. Same feeling. Same instinct to get out. What about Dale? I asked. What was he doing? The officer's eyes narrowed slightly. He reported hearing sounds in the walls. A cold wave washed over me. Did anyone check? Yes. And? They found nothing. Of course they didn't. because whatever was in there didn't want to be found. But that's not the weird part, the officer continued. I didn't like the sound of that. What is? I asked. He hesitated again. Dale started making requests. What kind of requests? Tools. My stomach dropped. Tools? Hammers, screwdrivers, anything he could use to open parts of the wall. I felt my hands go cold. He said something was inside, the officer added. My throat tightened. What did he think it was? The officer looked at me. Longer this time. He said it was listening. A chill ran through me. And then? I asked. He stopped reporting it. That made no sense. Why? The officer leaned forward slightly. Because he said it started responding. Silence. The air in the room felt heavier. How? I asked. The officer's voice dropped. He said it began repeating things. My heart started pounding again. Like what? Words. Sounds. My voice. People. I stood up too fast, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. I need to go, I said. The officer didn't stop me. But as I reached the door, he said one last thing. Whatever you do. I paused. Don't interact with it. I left, but his words followed me. Don't interact with it. Too late. When I got back to my dorm, Chris was sitting on his bed. You good? He asked. I didn't answer right away, because I didn't know how to explain this anymore. It's been there before me, I finally said. Chris frowned. What has? The thing in the wall. He went quiet. I told him everything. About Dale, about the previous student, about the tools, and the part that made his face go pale. It talks back. Chris stood up slowly. No, man, this is getting out of hand. It's already out of hand, I snapped. He ran a hand over his face. So what do we do? I looked toward the closet. We stop it. That night, we tried something different. We didn't wait. We didn't hide. We faced it. Chris grabbed a flashlight. I grabbed a screwdriver from his desk. My hands were shaking, but I didn't stop. We opened the closet, opened the panel. The smell hit us again, stronger this time, and the darkness inside felt deeper. Ready? Chris whispered. No, but I nodded anyway. We both leaned in. Hey, I said. My voice sounded small, weak. For a second, nothing happened. Then, breathing. Right there. Close. Chris flinched. Okay, maybe not, but I didn't stop, because now I needed answers. What are you? I asked. Silence. Then, what are you? My voice. Perfect again. Chris stepped back. Dude, stop talking to it. But I couldn't. Not anymore. Why are you here? I asked. A pause. Longer this time. Like it was thinking. Then, here. Not a full answer. Just part of one. Like it didn't understand the question. Or couldn't. What do you want? I asked. Silence again. Then, movement. Closer. The shape shifted forward slightly. And for the first time, it made a different sound. Not copying. Not mimicking. Something else. Low. Wet. Hungry. More. Chris grabbed my arm immediately. We're done. We're done. But I was already frozen. What more? I whispered. And then, it answered. Not in my voice. Not in any voice I recognized. You. My blood ran cold. Before I could react, the arm shot out, faster than before. Too fast. Grabbing the edge of the wall, pulling itself forward. Chris screamed. I stumbled backward, and the thing stopped. Right at the edge. like it couldn't go further, like something was holding it back. It twitched, strained, reaching, but it couldn't come out fully. Not fully. Open, it whispered. My mind snapped back to Dale. You didn't close it. You left it open. My heart started racing. What do you mean? Open what? The thing didn't answer, just kept reaching, struggling, like it was trapped. And then, slowly, it pulled back, into the darkness. Gone again. Chris slammed the panel shut, then the closet, then backed away like it might explode. What the hell was that? He shouted. I didn't answer, because I finally understood something. Dale wasn't trying to escape it. He wasn't afraid of it. He was helping it, listening to it, talking to it, maybe even feeding it. And now, it wanted me. I didn't sleep. Again. Chris didn't either. We sat on opposite beds, lights on, TV running, volume low but constant, anything to keep silence away. Because silence meant we could hear it. And every time the room got too quiet, click, faint, somewhere in the walls. Chris flinched every time. Tell me we're leaving, he said for the third time. We are, I replied. But I hadn't moved. Because something wasn't finished. Something didn't make sense. Open, I muttered. Chris looked at me. What? That's what it said. That's what Dale kept saying. You didn't close it. You left it open. I rubbed my face, trying to piece it together. I didn't break the wall, I said. I didn't make that opening. But you opened it, Chris said quietly. I froze, because he was right. I was the one who pushed the panel. I was the one who exposed whatever was inside. And since then, it had gotten louder, closer, more aware. It wasn't like this before, I whispered. Chris didn't respond, because he knew. We both knew. I had made it worse. Morning came slowly. Neither of us spoke much. We packed some essentials just in case. Clothes, phones, chargers. We weren't staying another night. But before we left, I needed one more answer. I'm going to security again, I said. Chris stood up immediately. I'm coming with you. This time, the officer didn't act surprised when he saw me. He just sighed. You went back in the wall, didn't you? My stomach dropped. How did you? Because they all do. A cold silence filled the room. All? I asked. He nodded slowly. Yes. Anyone who stays in that room long enough. Chris shifted uncomfortably beside me. What is it? Just tell us. The officer leaned back. We don't know exactly. Not reassuring. But we know this. He looked directly at me. It doesn't come out on its own. My throat tightened. What do you mean? It needs help. My heart started pounding again. Help how? The officer paused. Then said something that made my skin crawl. It needs someone to acknowledge it. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. To talk to it, he continued. To listen. To respond. Every word hit harder than the last. Because once you do, he leaned forward slightly, it learns you. Silence. Then, it starts to understand how to be you. My hands started shaking. Chris looked at me. You talk to it, he said quietly. I didn't answer, because I didn't need to. You said it copied your voice?
I nodded slowly. Then it's already started. My chest tightened. Started what? The officer hesitated. Then, replacing the distance. What? It can't come out fully. Not at first. Why? Chris asked. Because it doesn't belong out here. That answer felt incomplete. Wrong. Then how does it get out? The officer's eyes locked onto mine. It needs something to come through. A cold realization began forming in my head. Through what? I whispered. He didn't answer immediately. And when he did, I wished he hadn't. Through someone. I stood up. No, I said immediately. No, that's not happening. The officer didn't argue, didn't reassure me. He just said, then stop engaging with it. Too late. When we got back to the dorm, something felt different. Heavier.
Let me out. Hearing my own voice say those words felt worse than anything else so far. It wasn't begging. It wasn't threatening. It was certain. Chris tightened his grip on my arm. Don't respond, he whispered. I nodded, but I couldn't move, because the thing in the closet was stepping closer. Not fully out, still held back by something unseen, but closer than ever before. Its shape had changed. It wasn't just thin anymore. It was forming, becoming. Its arms looked more proportionate now, less distorted. Its posture, almost human. And its face, still dark, still empty, but not for long. I could see something shifting inside it, like features trying to form, eyes, a mouth. Not fully there, but trying. Dan, it said again. Chris pulled me back. Don't look at it. But I couldn't, because something inside me recognized it, like looking at a reflection that hadn't finished loading. Why do you want out? I asked before I could stop myself. Dan! Chris snapped. Too late. The thing froze. Then slowly, it tilted its head, exactly like I did earlier. Out, it repeated. A pause. Then, be. The word came out smoother than before, more natural, like it was learning faster now. Be what? I whispered. Chris stepped in front of me. No, we're done. We're leaving. He grabbed my arm and started pulling me toward the door. Behind us, the thing moved suddenly, faster. Its arm shot forward, slamming against the edge of the opening, straining, pushing, like it was trying to break through something invisible. Stay, it said. Chris didn't stop. We reached the door, unlocked it, and just as we stepped out, something grabbed Chris. He screamed. I turned and saw it, a long, thin arm wrapped around his ankle, stretching unnaturally from the closet. How is it? I shouted. It wasn't supposed to reach that far, but it was, and it was pulling him back, hard. Help me, Chris yelled, grabbing onto the doorframe. I grabbed his arms, pulled with everything I had. Let go of him, I screamed. The thing didn't respond. It just pulled, stronger, faster. Chris's body jerked backward violently, his grip slipping. Dan, don't let go! I won't! But I felt it, the strength, inhuman, unstoppable. And then it spoke, not to Chris, to me. You, my voice, calm, or him. My heart stopped. No, I whispered. Choose. Everything froze. Time, sound, thought. I looked at Chris, his face terrified.
"Don't listen to it," he said quickly. "Just pull me out." I looked back at the thing. Its shape was clearer now, and for the first time I saw a face forming. My face. Not perfect, not complete, but enough to recognize. "You," it repeated. Then, "or him." My hands started shaking. This wasn't about escape. It was about replacement. It needed one of us, and it didn't care which one. "Take me!" I shouted suddenly. Chris's eyes widened. "What? No! Take me!" I yelled again. "Let him go!" Chris struggled harder. "No, don't do that!" But I already knew. It wanted me. It had been learning me, watching me, preparing. Chris was just an option. The thing paused, like it was considering. Then it spoke. "You opened." A pause. "You stay." And just like that, its grip on Chris tightened, then released. Chris collapsed forward. I pulled him away instantly. We both stumbled out into the hallway, slamming the door shut behind us. Chris gasped for air. "What the hell was that?" I didn't answer, because I already knew. And when I looked back at the door, I heard it, soft, right on the other side. Click.
Chris could barely stand. His breathing was uneven. His hands shaking so badly he had to lean against the wall just to stay upright. What was that?" he asked again. I didn't answer because I was staring at the door, at the thin line of shadow underneath it. And something about it was moving, slowly, like something pacing inside, waiting. "You said it needed someone," Chris continued, still trying to process everything. "You said it needs someone to come through." "I know," I said quietly. "And you just offered yourself?" I closed my eyes for a second. I didn't offer. I realized. Chris looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "Realized what?" I opened my eyes, looked back at the door. That it was never choosing randomly. The hallway felt colder. It chose me the moment I opened that wall. Silence. Chris shook his head. No, we're getting help. We're calling." "It won't matter," I cut him off. He froze. "It's already too far," I said. And then, click, from inside the room. Both of us went silent. The sound came again. Click. Not at the door. Closer. Right behind it. Chris slowly stepped back. "Tell me that's not—" The doorknob turned. On its own. Slow. Deliberate. The lock unclicked. We hadn't touched it. The door creaked open. Just a little. A thin gap. Darkness inside. Then it opened wider, and something stepped out. Not crawling, not reaching. Walking. Normally, like a person. I felt my heart stop, because it wasn't a thing anymore. It was me, standing in the doorway. Perfect. Same height, same face, same clothes, same everything. Except its eyes. They were wrong. Too still, too empty, like something wearing a human expression without understanding it. Chris stumbled backward. No. The thing, me, tilted its head, exactly like I would. "Dan," it said. My voice, perfect. Chris looked at me, then back at it, his face drained of color. "Dan," he whispered. "I'm here." But even as I said it, I wasn't sure what that meant anymore. The thing stepped forward, smooth, natural, like it had always known how to move. "I'm here," it repeated. Chris backed up further. "Stop," he said. "Just stop." The thing stopped, smiled. Perfect. Not too wide anymore. Not unnatural. Just enough. "Stop," it echoed. Then it looked at me, and something passed between us. Understanding. It didn't need to copy anymore. It had learned enough. The room, the voice, the behavior. Me, you stay, it said softly. Not a question, a rule. My chest tightened because I felt it. Something pulling, not physically, something deeper, like the space behind that wall, was calling me back. I took a step. Chris grabbed me. "You don't dare," he said. I looked at him, and for a moment, I hesitated. But then I heard it, from inside the room, from the wall, that breathing, louder now, closer, waiting. "You opened," it repeated. I swallowed, because it was right. I did, and now something had to take my place. I slowly pulled my arm away from Chris. "Dan, no," he said. "I have to." "Why?" "Because if I don't," I glanced at the thing, "it will take someone else." Silence. Chris shook his head. "We'll figure something out. There is no something else." And deep down, I knew that was true. I stepped past him, toward the room, toward the open door, toward the darkness. The thing moved aside, letting me pass, like it had been waiting for this moment. I stopped just before entering, turned back one last time. Chris was staring at me, like he already knew. This never leaves the room. He didn't answer, because he couldn't. Silence. I stepped inside. The air changed instantly, colder, heavier. The closet door creaked open by itself, the panel inside already wide, waiting. The darkness inside felt alive. I took one last breath and stepped in. Silence, silence. Chris stood in the hallway, alone. The door slowly creaked shut in front of him, and after a few seconds, it opened again. He looked up and saw me, standing there, normal, calm. "You okay?" My voice, perfect. Chris stared, searching, looking for something wrong, anything. But there was nothing. No distortion, no delay, no emptiness. Just me. "Yeah, I think so," he said slowly. I smiled. "Perfectly. Good," I said. And then I stepped into the hallway, past him, free. That night, everything went back to normal. Classes, people, life. Chris never talked about it again. No one did, because there was nothing to say, nothing anyone could prove. But sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet and the walls feel just a little too thin, Chris still hears it, faint, distant, from inside the walls, a voice, broken, distorted, trying to sound human, trying to sound like me. "Chris, help."